Yo, what's going on? It's your man Rick the Dawn, and I just caught up on the latest episode of Dope Thief. All right, this one starts off with Ray providing directions to his mom via a journal entry. And this particular journal entry is letting mom know, hey, there is money in the storage. And if you go to the storage unit and you input this particular code, you'll basically have all the money. So he tells his mother that because I'm assuming Ray being locked up, he is pretty much counting his days. So he knows his days are numbered, and as a result, he's just trying to make sure that money goes to good use. Then next, the bikers corner the mother, and this is the most craziest part because the mother has a dog, and she's going to the storage unit, so we think. And maybe she was, I can't really tell, because something happens as the biker gang circles her. And we're just thinking to ourselves, like, one, why hadn't this already happened? Why is the mother walking around free and basically doing these mundane activities like walking the dog? Like, what's going on with this biker gang? I mean, they don't know that she would apply or help apply pressure to Ray. But nevertheless, they finally circle her. And right as things start to heat up, the freaking police intervene. And we find out right then and there that the mother had an earpiece in her ear and was working with the police to capture the biker gang. Clutch. Now, mom is wearing a wire in our next scene, and she's at the bedside of Ray, who was shot in the last episode. She's wearing a wire on her chest, and she is talking to Ray. All right. And during that conversation, she confirms that Ray's father did indeed die in that last episode, because right as the bullet goes off in the last episode, the screen just cuts away. So we don't really know for certain that Ray's father passed away. But during this conversation, that is when we find out without any mistake. Now, while she's talking to Ray, she's doing all these things that emphasize the middle of her chest. And that is her way of communicating to Ray that she has a wire on. And intelligently, as she's talking to Ray, she's rubbing her chest, which is distorting the audio that the DEA agent is able to hear. But then we move on to this next scene where Ray and Manny are being interrogated, because upon turning Ray into the hospital, apparently it's like turning yourself in. And the DEA is pressuring both Ray and Manny, and for all intents and purposes is trying to get them to flip on one another. Then, if you know, there's a female undercover cop who was shot in the neck, and she urges the DEA to charge Ray with trafficking, not just murder. As you know, Ray and Manny are on trial for murder because when they stormed that farm, a real cop was killed. And the female cop who they thought they killed was only shot in the neck. And she has this clever idea to have Ray charged for trafficking, basically saying, hey, he's a drug lord. And we don't know why she's asking the DEA to do this initially, but her intentions soon become very clear. But initially, we don't really know why she would want that to happen. Our first inclination is that she is trying to make sure that Ray is just put under the jail. That's what we think initially. And she brings up a great point. In order for a person to be charged for trafficking, or as the head of a trafficking ring, there only requires 3 people. And that would be easy. Ray, Manny, Ray's mother, or even the gentleman who came along with Ray and Manny to storm the farm, who was ultimately killed. He would still count as a 3rd member. Okay, so that is what she proposes to the DEA, the undercover female cop. Then we flip to Manny. His fiance urges him to flip on Ray and take a plea deal. So this is something that is bound to happen when you have a defendant and a co-defendant. When they get them separated, they're going to try to divide and conquer. And in this particular case, Manny's fiance is saying, hey, you better take a deal before Ray does. And she's applying pressure to him, Manny, by saying, hey, you know, you have a child on the way. I'm supposed to be your family and stuff like that. She even confides in Manny and telling him that she pawned his engagement ring in order to afford an attorney for Manny's removal or dismissal from court or even custody. And again, Manny is struggling. He's played the weak character all season long, and you really can't be too surprised by the way that he reacts. He struggles with this particular decision because he looks at Ray as if he's family. But then his fiance is like, wait, we're your family. Ray is just somebody who got you in trouble, basically. But here's where it gets crazy, though. So after Manny gets off the phone from talking with his fiance, who's, again, telling him to flip on Ray, we see Manny walk away from the phone via police escort. And we're thinking that Manny is going to get escorted back to his cell. But the craziest thing happens, and this is probably the most surprising thing for me personally. Two police officers who are apparently crooked, they take Manny and lock him in the cell with the biker gang leader or a co-leader. I'm not sure where he ranks in terms of hierarchy. But remember I told you the biker gang were arrested when they circled Ray's mother. And apparently they're in the same jail as Ray and Manny. So two police officers who we can assume are crooked, they take Manny and put him in the same cell as the biker gang leader and then close the door. And then we also find out that the biker gang leader has a shank. So Manny is fighting against this biker gang leader and basically getting sliced up. Somehow, some way, Manny does prevail and actually gets the better of the biker gang person, which I had to call BS on because, again, Manny has not shown any fight ability or ability to protect himself. He's been very weak as a character, very mentally unstable. And here you have a biker gang leader with a shank. So it was hard to believe, but somehow, some way, Manny did get himself out that situation and basically choked the other guy out. It was also confusing to me because I'm like, okay, once Manny takes him out, then the guys who are watching the door, the crooked police officers who are apparently allies to the biker guy who just got laid out, you would think they would send somebody else in to finish off the job for Manny, or they would go in themselves and finish the job. It was also confusing for me is because by putting Manny in that cell with that biker guy, what if the biker guy killed Manny? How are they going to cover that up when there's cameras, I'm assuming, throughout the facility? So it was a lot of things there that didn't make a lot of sense to me personally. But anyway, after that is done, Manny gains protection from a Mexican gang within that prison. There's two Mexican prisoners who come to Manny and basically say, hey, man, you got to pick a side. And if you know anything about prison, you are basically in the gang of your race. There's no more blood, Crip, Hoovers, GDs, BDs. It's all about, or Aryans and all that. It's your race is your new gang. And these Mexican prisoners come to Manny and basically say, hey, you getting down or you going to lay down? All right. And eventually Manny concedes and basically says, hey, can you guys protect me? And they assure Manny that they can. But Manny also tells them, hey, I don't have any money to give you guys to, help me out if I need help. And they say, hey, this is deeper than money. It's not about money. And in fact, you can take care of us when you do get it. That kind of situation. Basically extortion, in my opinion. But anyway, Manny and Ray's lawyer try to turn them against each other. This is where Ray's girlfriend / lawyer kind of gets into the picture and say, hey, we really think that you should consider turning and taking a plea deal. Or we've heard that Manny is about to do that. All right. And this just drives Ray crazy because he's like, how could Manny turn on me? Basically. But he starts to come to the conclusion like, look, I don't care what happens. This is what Ray's thinking. He doesn't care what happens to him as long as his mother is safe. And again, it kind of goes back to the point I made earlier. I'm like, if the biker gang know that Ray's mother means so much to him and they want something from Ray, you would have thought they would target her a lot more efficiently. But I mean, we could be clear. I mean, we could be fair here and say they tried and this time they were arrested. But I think this should have happened earlier before she started to work with the police. So that happened. Then we cut to a scene where Ray and Manny are on the police bus and they are being transported to, I'm assuming, the bigger prison. And I did not understand this. First off, it was only Ray and Manny on the bus, which was strange to me. I'm like, tell me this is a TV show without telling me. And while they're on the bus, you would imagine that the police officer, I'm assuming there should be two of them, a driver and someone that's looking out. I could not figure out why in the world they were allowing Manny and Ray to talk. And not only did Ray and Manny talk, they had a stone cold argument. And essentially Ray is upset because he's like, yo, Manny, I hear that you about to turn on me, bro. I tell you about to turn up. Now, you know how Ray talk. And Manny's like, no, I'm not going to turn on you. Like, what, you don't have any faith in me? You know, that kind of situation. So that happens. And it doesn't really get resolved, to be honest with you. Then the undercover female cop meets with Ray's attorney and proposes a plan to get Ray a informant's deal by making him look. Let me slow this down a little bit because this is crazy. So the female cop who initially talked to the DEA and proposed the idea of charging Ray for drug trafficking then meets with Ray's attorney and proposes the idea to her. And Ray's attorney does exactly what she's supposed to do. Push back and say, hey, wait. Why would you want Ray to be charged for trafficking? Oh, I see what you're trying to do. Because you know the statutes, you know the laws. That if there's at least 3 people involved in a drug-related arrest, that person could be deemed a trafficking kingpin or what have you. So the lawyer is starting to put all the pieces together, but she can't quite understand what the motivation is behind the undercover cops, the female cops' motive. Like, why would you want Ray to be viewed as a trafficking kingpin? Are you trying to save face? Is this personal? Is it about the cop that died who was the lover of the female undercover cop? She's just trying to figure it out. And she says no, because by making Ray or charging Ray as a trafficking kingpin, this will now be looked at as a drug case instead of just a murder case. As a murder case, Ray gets sentenced to life or worse, and he basically gets thrown away. But if Ray is viewed under the trafficking lens, if they look at Ray and try to charge him with trafficking, this is going to require a much more extensive look into the drug situations and the stuff that was found at the farm. What this undercover cop is trying to do is 2 things. Number 1, she's trying to make Ray more valuable as a suspect. And if he's more valuable, it'll make the DEA start to put different things on the table. Like, hey, if you can help us nail the bigger fish, Ray, then we'll give you the informant's deal. If you be an informant for us, we'll let you go. So that's what she's trying to do, the undercover cop. The second thing she's trying to do is trying to bring some bigger fish out of the shadows. She even says that. She says, by charging Ray as a trafficking kingpin, it's going to bring some real big fish out of the shadows, because you know how it go. The bigger the trafficking king or queen, the harder it is to nail them, because they're so insulated with all these drug dealers and biker gangs and this and that cartel. But the real kingpin, the real queenpin, they're somewhere relaxing with no drugs around them because everything is automated. So this female cop understands that if they can charge Ray with trafficking, then that's going to require a different level of scrutiny and a different level of interrogation and resources even to find out, hey, those drugs, that drugs and the drug money and the connections of the money and drugs and all that, where did it come from? It wasn't just a Ray thing. Ray is from Philadelphia, from a small house in Philadelphia. He is not high on the hierarchy when it comes to drugs. So where did it come from? What's the source? And that undercover cop realizes that if they can switch the charges from murder to trafficking, 2 things can happen. They can bring these big fish out and also even provide Ray with a little bit of hope. Perhaps instead of a murder case, he can be maybe even get the informant's deal. And if he gets a informant's deal, they'll say, hey, you're going to be an informant for us. You're going to testify against these bigger fish. And that would be a small glimmer of hope for Ray, which at this point, I'm not sure if there's any hope for Ray. But because it is a TV show, I guess so. But in real life, if you're connected to the murder of a cop and the wounding of another one, and you're impersonating the DEA, you're getting buried under the prison. So this is just TV magic at its best. But nevertheless, Manny tells his fiancée to go to the storage locker room and take everything for her child and or for her and his child. All right, so this is a cool part because after that, we go back to Manny, who was just struggling at this point. By this point, Ray and Manny have already had the argument, and Ray is kind of like upset with Manny, and Manny is upset with Ray. So I would say that they did a good job, the attorneys, of kind of making them clash. But it doesn't end the way that I'm assuming the cops or the attorneys want to end, where they're taking plea deals against each other. Instead, Manny is starting to exude this different persona, this different energy, where he's like kind of on his last legs. He just got into this crazy fight. So Manny is just going through it. His face is just destroyed. It's marked with blood and scars. So Manny is struggling mentally, physically, and spiritually. All right. And he gives his fiance a little information about the storage unit. And he tells her, go there, go to the storage unit and take all the money out and flee. And use that money for his child that's on the way. And when she takes that advice, she goes to that storage unit, opens the storage unit door, and she finds Ray's mother there. Because again, at the start of the episode, Ray's mother read that journal entry from Ray in which he gave her the combination and the direction to where the money was. So they find each other there, and they're basically like shocked to see each other there. But this is where it gets really, really strange because we cut to Ray, he's in his hospital bed, and he should have a marshal guarding the door because he is in hot water with everybody. I mean, what, the triads, the cartel, the DEA, the biker gang. He got problems with everybody. So you would imagine that his hospital room would just be guarded by a nice, strong force because they want to keep him alive so that he can testify and, actually pay, his penance for what he did. But something weird happens. And this is where the episode kind of goes off the rails for me because Ray wakes up, and then over the PA system of the hospital is the voice of the guy they stole from, the guy we haven't heard from since like episode 1 or 2. And for whatever reason, he has control over the hospital PA system, which I'm not even sure how he did that, but he does have that control. And he's mocking Ray and saying, hey, we know where everybody's at. We know where Manny is at. We know where your mother's at in the storage unit. We know where Manny's fiance is in the storage unit. We know where Son is. We know where everybody you love is. And if you don't start talking, we're gonna hurt somebody tonight. And he basically threatens everybody. Okay, he threatens everybody. And Ray is panicking. He's like, yo, where's the marshal? Where's the marshal? He's trying to figure out like, how's this happening? How is this guy on the PA system? How much power does he have to even be on the PA system? And where's the marshal at? Because theoretically speaking, there should be somebody guarding his door. And if somebody killed the people that's guarding his door, then why wouldn't they come in and just kill Ray? That's my question. That's what I'm asking myself. But anyway, they start cutting to everybody that the guy, the overlord or whatever you want to call him, everybody that he says he has access to, they're cutting to them and showing what they're doing as he says their name. And this is where it gets kind of crazy because when he says, I know where Son is, it cuts to Son lying in his bed and two guys approaching Son. The two guys approach Son as if they're going to do something to Son, but that man is not like, he ain't going like that. So as the two guys, I guess they got like knives in their hand, I'm not sure. As they come to kill Son, Son grabs their hand and knocks it out, he had his own personal shank, and he stabbed this dude. He did it in the most karate way. It's like so stereotypical that it was amazing. Okay, look, he was a bat, and he hit him with the slice like that. He fell down. The second guy tried to come in. He grabbed his arm, stabbed him 4-5 times, throw him. I was like, oh, okay, Son is like that. You don't want to mess with Son. Got it. Of course, they gave the the Asian character with crazy hand speed and all that other stuff. But you can kind of tell that that's what it was anyway, because Son, throughout this entire series, has demonstrated such high levels of discipline, which you would have to equate to karate, martial arts. He never shows emotion. He's always stoic. No matter if he's cutting down his dog from the swing that just was hung by a cartel member or whatever. No matter what was happening, he had the same demeanor and he was calm. So when these guys try to take him out, Son just knocks him off. He kills 2 people and doesn't even wink. Okay? Seriously, he doesn't even blink. Okay? So that's what happens. And it's at this point that we see the most surprising thing from this episode. And if you plan on watching this episode, I would say you need to leave right now. All right. But if you want to, you want to hear it anyway, here we go. Manny is pulled over. I think somebody checks on Manny or something like that. They grab his arm to turn him over, and we find a syringe lodged into his arm. And he's died from overdose. Rest in peace, Manny. Okay, he dies from a overdose, and the needle is still in his arm. Now, what I could not figure out was, did Manny overdose on his own, or was he killed and made to look like it was an overdose? I could not tell. But if I had to guess, I'm gonna say that he did it himself, because at one point, the two guys that he kind of like started to befriend, the prisoners, they gave him a little package. And it was like a aluminum foil. I thought it was a shank, but apparently it must have been a syringe. And something tells me that he was stressed out and he decided to take some drugs, and the drugs killed him. Okay. It's also at this point that the episode concludes, and it concludes in the most dramatic fashion, where Ray is basically screaming at the top of his lungs because he is going through it. All right. Manny is dead. Son is being attacked. His mother hopefully is alive in a storage unit. Manny's fiance is, who knows where. Ray is going through it. Okay. This is the worst we've seen him. He's been shot. And it makes you go back and ask yourself, Ray, or not yourself, but it makes you want to ask him, Ray, was this all worth it? Because to this point, he hasn't been able to spend the money or enjoy the money that he stole. And everything that he's lost, you can make the argument it just wasn't worth it. But that's where this episode ends. And I would argue that this was a really good episode, because I think the last two episodes were a little boring, if you will. And we see already that the next episode is called Innocent People. So that leads me to believe that more people could become casualties or get hurt. And one other thing that's worth noting is that Ray's attorney girlfriend, while that guy's on the PA system basically pointing out all the people that he can have hurt, he does say the attorney's name. And as he says that, you see the attorney leaving the office, and she's kind of, minding her own business and doing her own thing. And, we're seeing it, but she doesn't see it at that time. But there's a car right in front of her flashing the high beams at her. And they drive full speed towards her. And I don't know what happens to her. I think they cut away right before there's an impact. So you can tell that this episode kind of is preparing you for the next episode where some innocent people might be in a situation. Okay. But amazing episode. I thought it was pretty good. They kind of redeemed themselves a little bit. And yeah, Manny, he's out of there. Yep. Thank you all for watching. If you found this enjoyable, you know what to do. Show some love by throwing a like and all that other stuff. Deuce.